Hi, it's Tom from Digital Foundry here. The Rainbow Six Siege beta rages on this week, and we've had the chance to test both PS4 and Xbox One versions individually to see how they stack up. And here we have the PS4 version. Ubisoft's choice to cut the single player mode from Rainbow Six Siege means everything rests on this online multiplayer mode. It's perhaps too early to tell if Ubisoft has fully succeeded in its delivery here, but the beta shows an interesting use of the Anvil Next engine and Real Blast technology, which work well in offering players a wide range of choices in each mission. Each scenario can be tackled in a multitude of ways, and it all targets a 60 frames per second update in the standard mode. The Real Blast tech is an interesting plus for the game, in fact. In this assault on a suburban townhouse, it allows bullet impact physics to procedurally chip away at the environment. Materials like brick and metals quickly line with holes, while explosives let us blast through walls, ceilings and doors entirely. It adds a distinctly dynamic feel to the gameplay, and no two matches play out in quite the same way. But for the comparison between PS4 and Xbox One, it appears both platforms run with matching effects work, with debris flying on explosions being a convincing highlight. But as a consequence of targeting 60 frames per second here, visuals feel undercharged in certain other areas. Lighting, for example, is rather flat in spots, while the quality of materials across each map is variable. As for resolution, PS4 runs at a native 1080p here, while Xbox One is at 900p, something we can confirm after a pixel count of each. It means Xbox One gives a slightly less clear image overall than PS4, though image quality isn't really a strong point either way for the game. The use of post-process anti-aliasing causes a degree of blurring on both platforms, as does the temporal algorithm used to clear up visual noise in motion. Overall, it gives Rainbow Six Siege a softer look on PS4 and Xbox One than we had expected going in. Beyond the gap in resolution though, Rainbow Six Siege offers up a similar visual experience on both consoles in terms of core assets. That said, there are key differences in a few areas. Texture filtering is one, leading to blurrier ground textures on PS4, which appears to use trilinear filtering. Meanwhile, Xbox One uses what looks like 4 times anisotropic filtering, a higher quality method that keeps the floor looking sharp at tight angles. As for frame rates on consoles, Rainbow Six Siege targets 2 different performance profiles, depending on the mode you're playing. The standard multiplayer mode we're running here operates at 60 frames per second, with occasional drops as you can see. As we switch between PS4 and Xbox One here, it's fair to say performance is very similar. But moving on, the Terrorist Hunt mode, also available in the beta, is instead capped at 30 frames per second, that's half the rate of refresh. It's an odd sacrifice to make. Both modes share the same maps, and image quality is also identical, with no changes to level of detail and the effects. The baseline visuals are still budgeted around hitting 60 frames per second then, and yet performance is somehow downgraded in one mode and not in the other. According to Ubisoft, Terrorist Hunt mode operates at this lower frame rate due to its advanced AI, with the ability to perform similar actions to a human player. This means enemies can plant charges and react to combat in a more realistic manner. And it's fair to say AI here is a clear step up from the usual cannon fodder encountered in many FPS titles. It makes combat eventful, but the real concession is it runs at 30 frames per second, which can be quite a shift. After playing the standard multiplayer mode at 60 frames per second, the drop down to 30 frames per second is really felt. The reduction in control response and smoothness is substantial, and the experience feels far less fluid and enjoyable to play as a result. After a few matches it's possible to adjust to the change, but the shooting never feels quite as satisfying compared to the regular multiplayer games at 60. The standard multiplayer mode isn't squeaky clean at 60 frames per second either, but it's still solid enough to convince. Heavy firefights and explosions see performance run between 50 to 60 frames per second, with lows hitting around the mid-40s when the engine is really pushed. The use of adaptive VSync leads to some tearing as well when frame rates are impacted, but this helps to keep controller response at a consistent level overall. Despite these hitches, Rainbow Six's regular multiplayer still delivers the look and feel of a 60 frames per second title, and on many occasions drops in frame rate go by unnoticed in action. Anyway, that's all for the moment. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks for watching.